like Dusty said at the beginning, it's the last Sunday of 2012. Everybody's going to be getting together their New Year's resolutions and all those really fun things that they're going to actually accomplish this time. And this time we really mean it. And maybe go 7 days into the new year and get rid of it. But one of the things that we're going to be looking at, I think, is when people sit down and go for the New Year's resolution, they're going to be going towards what's my goal. Well, in order to have a goal, you have to have vision, right? You have to have focus on something. In order to have all that, you have to make sure your perception is straight, because in all truth, perception, it's kind of everything. You know, there's, of all the billions and trillions of people who have lived on this planet and who are living on this planet and who will live on this planet, you know, everybody has their own opinions as how to do things, as what to believe, and not all of us really see eye to eye. It doesn't happen all the time. And in fact, you know, we have all of our different opinions when it comes to political ideas, when it comes to how we should raise our children, to, you know, what the best foods are, what the best sports teams are. And, you know, when it all comes down to it, even people who are almost exactly alike, they differ on opinion too. So not all of us really see eye to eye. It's like that old saying that no two snowflakes are alike. Well, it's the same for us. No two humans think alike. It doesn't happen. Now, there are a few things that I think that we should have opinions on. You know, the small things, the little things. We should have opinions. What's the best food? What's the best football team? We should have an opinion on Pastor Donnie's shirts on Sunday morning. Those are fun, you know. But regardless of that, we need to know that those are the only things that we should have opinions on. There are some things that we should not have an opinion on at all. Things like, is there a God? That should not be left open for opinion. Is there a heaven or a hell? That should not be left open for opinion. And these things, they ring throughout worldwide as hot topics that supposedly can never get answered. Because a Christian will say on one hand, yes, there's a God and He loves you. And an atheist will say on the other hand, no, there's no God and we're alone. And then there's a whole bunch of opinions in between the two. And the problem is one of those statements is true. So I would propose to you that truth is something that we should never have an opinion about. We either accept it or we don't. So you shouldn't have an opinion about something, because when you have an opinion about something, you get to think about things, you get to nitpick about things, and then you start creating things in your own mind, and you start forming your own opinions as to what the truth should be rather than what it actually is. And we have all these different groups now. We have different denominations out there, different groups of Christians, because not only are we fighting and arguing about, you know, arguing with non-Christians about the existence of God and is there a heaven, is there a hell, we argue amongst ourselves. Christians arguing with Christians saying this is the way we should do it. No, this is the way we should do it. We should sprinkle, we should dunk, we should do this, we should meet on Sundays. No, we should meet on Saturdays. We have all these different theologies and all these different beliefs and doctrine systems that come forth, and now we have all these different denominations. Because we can't see eye to eye. People, we're not supposed to see eye to eye with each other. We're supposed to fall in line with what God says. If we fall in line with what God says, we'll technically see eye to eye with each other, if you think about it. But does that happen? Probably not. Because we got too many groups out there thinking too many different things. Let's look at the word denomination that I just said a few seconds ago. Now, the definition of the word denomination is, you know, what Webster says is a category of believers adhering to specific beliefs, which is true. That's what a denomination is. But I like to take definitions a little bit further, if you know me. I like to break down the word, so let's look at the word denomination. There's a little prefix at the beginning of that word, D-E. And that's referring to something, that D-E is referring to something that is either being removed or reversed in whatever category that you're talking about. And in this case, the word nomination. Now, we've heard the word nomination throughout the last 18 months with all the elections and stuff happening. We had people who were nominated to fill an office to become the elect. And oddly enough, the word nomination refers to the act of appointing someone as the elect. Now, people, we are God's chosen people. We are God's chosen. And throughout the Bible, you will see that we are called God's elect. So personally, when I hear the word denomination, I don't hear a denomination, a specific group of people who adhere to a specific group of theology and doctrine. I hear denomination, the diminishing of or the dividing of God's elect. See, a lot of people, we look at the word denomination as a strength, when in actuality, it's actually the weakening of God's people because it's dividing us up. And if you don't believe me, let me ask you this. How many Christian denominations are there worldwide? Yeah, somebody just went, oh boy. Because in the South, we're used to Baptist, Methodist, Catholic, Presbyterian, Assemblies of God, Church of God, and the every popular non-denomination, which is a denomination in its own. Kind of weird. But that's just 7 of 41,000 worldwide Christian denominations. That means 41,000 groups do not see eye to eye. They say we should do this instead of doing that. This group says we should do this instead of doing that. Why are there 41,000? There's 1,500 in North America alone. There's that many groups of Christians who won't see eye to eye. And their perception is way off because in actuality, worldwide, there should be how many? 1. But does that happen? Absolutely not. I mean, you can't sit there and say, Southern Baptist is the way to go, Brother Chad. God didn't say in His Word, people, follow me, believe in my Son, become a Southern Baptist because they have wicked awesome food and music. That's not in the Bible. He doesn't say, become a Methodist. You don't have to go underwater. He doesn't say that. He says, follow me. Live how I live. Do what I do. Believe in me. That's all He said. So that should be the simple thing, right? No. Why? Because the reason why we get so messed up and life becomes so difficult is because we lose sight of God. And losing sight of God is actually a lot easier than people think. See, people think that losing sight of God is a hard thing to do. It's really easy to do. You just take your focus off of Him. And most of the time, you don't even know you're doing it. It's because of the nature that's in us. We are born into a sinful nature. And part of a sinful nature is to try and separate yourself from God. That's what sin is. It's the separation of man from God. In our walk with Him, we tend to act like children. Ever see children who always try to act independent of their parents? That's really fun, especially in my home. I have a 3-year-old named Daniel. He loves to be independent. He's the prince at that. And whenever Heather and I hear this 3 words, we get a chill going down our spine because from the back of the house we hear, I did it! And I did it usually refers to him trying to go potty by himself. And I did it means that 99% of the time if he did it, it means me and Heather are cleaning up whatever he did, in the bathroom and the happy trail that he made to celebrate with us into the living room. Yeah, fun times at the Boswell house. Y'all should come over sometime. We'll have tea. And you can hear those words and go, I'll get the towels. But even at 3 years old, it's a natural thing that comes out. That natural urge of independence comes out of us, and we've all done that. I mean, come on, haven't you ever tried to be independent of your parents? Do something without your parents' permission? Just so you can prove to them, I'm a big boy, I'm a big girl. And even when you get caught and it didn't work, you're still stubborn enough to continue on with it? It's the independence, it's the nature that we have. And the reason we did that, and the reason why we do that is because we lost sight of the authority that is above us. As children, we lose sight of the authority as the parents above us. Well, as children of God, we lose sight of the authority of God above us. So going into the new year, I've got 3 points for you. 3 things that I'd like for you guys to consider going into the new year as part of your New Year's resolution. The first thing I think that you guys should consider doing every morning when you wake up is you're going to say to yourself, I'm going to set my sights on God and not lose focus. Because setting your sights on God It allows us to focus. And when we focus, guess what? We see something called truth. We will see the truth when we focus on God. Because when we can't see the truth in front of us, what happens? We end up relying on our own understanding. We ended up relying on our own knowledge in order to figure out what it is we're trying to figure out. And what happens when we can't see the truth in front of us, what we don't realize is that the truth is not hidden at all. We just can't see it. So there's a difference. Truth doesn't hide. The Bible says that God is truth. God doesn't have any reason to hide. So if we can't see the truth, it means there's something wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with God. Our sight gets skewed, and even if it's right in front of us, sometimes we can't see it. Let me give you an example. There's a guy he's going to the airport, and he's really rushed for his flight. And he's really hungry, though. He realizes he's got a few minutes that he can spare before he gets on his flight, so he runs into the nearest Starbucks at the airport. He decides, you know what, I want a bag of donuts and I want some coffee. So he gets his bag of donuts, he gets his coffee, he runs out to the food court to sit down, and there's no seats anywhere. I was kind of bummed out because his terminal is like 800 miles away. He doesn't want to drink and eat and pull a suitcase at the same time. It would get messy. Well, as he was thinking that, somebody got up from a table, and he ran over and sat down. He ran over to get that table, and he looked, and there's this guy sitting at the table. So he's thinking, I'm not going to see this guy again. I'm going to Jersey, so I'll just sit with him. So he puts his coffee down. He puts his briefcase down, his suitcase down, and he sits down. Grabs his coffee, takes a sip. He grabs the bag of donuts on the table, opens it up, reaches in, grabs a donut, looks at the guy across from him, nods, smiles, and then eats. Puts the bag down. Well, not a minute after he sat down, the guy across from the table reaches over, grabs the bag of donuts, reaches in, pulls out a donut, puts the bag down, nods, smiles, and then he eats. And the guy is sitting across from the table going, what is the world coming to? He's looking around to make sure anybody else saw it. This guy just took one of my donuts. What's wrong with him? Well, he didn't want to be outdone, so he grabbed the bag, and, he didn't want to say anything, because what if the guy was, not all there? What if he said something and the guy went off on him, started screaming at him? So instead of saying anything, he just grabbed the bag, and he just kind of looked at him with this look, kind of like it looks good kill. Kind of puffed up a little bit. Reaches in, grabs a donut, puts the bag a little bit closer to him to let the guy know, do not cross this line. Well, apparently the guy didn't see the line. As soon as that was over with, he grabbed the bag, and he reached in, grabbed another donut, put it right back in the middle of the table, smiled, and ate. And the guy is about to go crazy. He's like, are you donut thief? Are you serious? He's thinking this in his mind. He's like, what is wrong with this guy? This is the second time he's taken one of my donuts. I'm about to haul off and do nothing, but, he's making me mad. So he reaches over, grabs the bag of donuts, reaches in, grabs another donut, and puts the bag of donuts next to his coffee and puts his hand down rather sternly, hoping that would indicate to the guy, these are my donuts, back off. Well, the guy didn't have ESPN, so he didn't read his mind. He reached over, he grabbed the bag of donuts again, reaches in, and pulls out the last donut. Breaks it in half, puts half back into the bag, closes it up, puts it back, nods, smiles, and gets up and leaves. And the guy is sitting there just undone. He's like, you gotta be kidding me. First of all, you stole my donuts, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and you're going to sit here and you sit there with your bare face hanging out and think, I'm going to eat after you. You break that thing. You probably got a disease. I'm not touching that. So all these things are going through his mind. He's getting mad, and then he looks down at his watch. He realizes he's going to be late. So he gets up, he puts on his coat, he gets his hat, puts it on, grabs his coffee, reaches down to get his suitcase, and sitting on top of his suitcase was his bag of donuts. So all the while, the man thought this guy was stealing his donuts. In actuality, the other man was sharing his. It would have been more clear to the man had he been paying attention, but the problem was he was so rushed that he couldn't see it. Was it an accident that he forgot to eat his donuts? Yeah. Was it his fault that he ate somebody else's because he lost sight of the truth that the bag was on his bag? Yeah. But we can be like that man sometimes. We can be so rushed. We can get going so fast that we get ahead of what God has for us. And we begin to rely on our own understanding. And like the man in the story, when you start relying on your own understanding and things don't pan out the way that you want them to, you kind of start to get angry inside. When you start to get angry inside, you start to protect things that are not truth. But that's the way you see it. And you begin to protect those things. So how do I protect myself against that? Well, we look in the Bible. The Bible gives us in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. There's a verse that says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. But in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path." So basically what that's saying is set your mind on God, and you will know where to go. You will know what to do, how to do it, how to think it, what to think. So in the morning, when you wake up, the first thing you need to tell yourself is, I'm going to set my sight on God. I'm not going to lose focus. And the second thing you need to say to yourself is, don't think I have it figured out. Because once that happens, pride sets in. And once pride sets in, it's a heck of a lot harder to get it focused. Because all you're thinking about is yourself at that point. That's what pride is. It's all about yourself. So you need to warn yourself. Every day, that's what the Bible says about humbling yourself in the sight of God. You need to do that daily. Humble yourself in front of Him daily, because leaning on God and His understanding will open up a whole new world for not only you, but your family. Now, when we're diligent with walking with Him, we begin to see things that we've never seen before. We get to know things from God that we've never known before. Well, why is that? Well, because when you get closer to God, what happens? He begins to reveal things to you. As the relationship with you and God start to develop, He will let you know things. It's just like you and your spouse, or you and your best friend. You know things about your spouse. You know things about your best friend that nobody else knows. Why? Well, because there's a bond. There's a trust. There's a connection. There's a relationship, and it's the same thing between you and God. The same thing between you and God applies. And as you get closer to God, He will reveal things to you. Now, what He reveals to you, I don't know. That's between you and God. If you want to know something, ask Him. He might reveal things to you like about the future, like He did with John, as John wrote Revelation. He might reveal, or as how about the coming of the Messiah, as He told Daniel and Ezekiel and Isaiah, hundreds and thousands of years before Jesus even came. He may tell you about the current situation that you're in and how to get out of it, kind of like He told Jeremiah and Ezekiel and David and all those people. But you have to be prepared. See, God will reveal things to you, but you're going to have to be prepared to hear it, and you're going to have to be prepared to see it. Because if you're not focused on Him, you're not going to see anything. And you're not going to hear anything. So how does God speak to us? Well, sometimes He speaks to us through His Word, through the Bible, His written Word. How many of y'all have ever read a verse and you look at it and you went, I get it now. And then 6 weeks later or so, you read it again and you get something else. But it all ties together. God will speak to you that way. Sometimes He will wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, pray for this person right now. And you don't know why, but you obey and you pray for that person only to find out hours later or maybe days later that that person was in distress. I know people that's happened to in this church recently. Sometimes God will show us things and we have to kind of look for them, though. And I don't want to say that they're hidden or anything like that. They're there. They're in plain sight. We're just not seeing it. So let me go to the example of the announcement of a Messiah. Did you know that the first mention of a Messiah did not come in Daniel or Isaiah or Proverbs or Psalms? It came in Genesis. It came in chapter 3 of Genesis when Adam and Eve were still standing in the garden about to get booted out. Comes to us in chapter 3, verse 15, where God said, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. That's actually the first mention of the Messiah. But see, there's another mention of the Messiah coming up in a chapter or two. And I want to show you guys something that's been in front of our faces for thousands of years. The words have not been changed. Names have not been changed to protect the innocent. It's always been there. And it comes to us in the form of family lineage. Now, before y'all go, oh my gosh, he said family lineage, this is going to be a long sermon. Because if you've ever read Numbers, that usually puts me to sleep right away. I'll be honest with you. You know, Haphaleo begat Saphalos, and Saphalos begat Prashapha, and okay. It gets kind of boring. Who wants to read family trees in the Bible? But I got to tell you something. Family lineages are extremely important to God. Very prominent in Jewish culture. In fact, Matthew felt it so important that the very first thing that you see in Matthew's account of the gospel, in Matthew chapter 1, you will see the family lineage all the way through to Jesus. So the one that I want to look at is not in Numbers. It's not in anywhere else but in Genesis chapter 5. And in Genesis chapter 5, it starts off with the family lineage of Adam all the way to Noah. And you have 10 names. You have 10 men: Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. Now, any would-be parents out there, please do not name your child Methuselah. Those are some cool names. Y'all want to have some really cool baby names? Y'all go to Numbers. Maybe like Ariphathath. You can't even, I don't even think they could say it. They just tried to write it out. But you have these 10 names. Now, just like your names, your name has an individual meaning, an individual definition. And I tell the youth all the time, the meaning of your name is either something that you can become or something that you may have to overcome. But sometimes, in this instance especially, sometimes God will put a message in the names that he gives us. So let's look at the definitions of the names of these men, these 10 men. Adam means man. Seth means is appointed. Enosh means mortal. Kenan means sorrow. Mahalalel means the blessed God. Jared means shall come down. Enoch means teaching. Methuselah means his death shall bring. Lamech means the despairing. Noah means comfort or rest. Now you're probably looking at it going, okay, big deal. A bunch of guys in the Bible have these really depressing names. Well, what happens if you were to put all the names of those men together into one sentence? You do that, you get this. Man is appointed mortal sorrow. The blessed God shall come down, teaching. His death shall bring the despairing comfort. How's that for a message? That in the 5th chapter of the beginning of mankind, he would say that to us. It was in front of us the whole time. And you might be asking yourself, Chad, come on, how in the world was I supposed to catch that? Well, I guess what I'm saying is if you slow down long enough from life's quick pace, you might see a lot more than what God has for you. Now, I'll be honest with you. That wasn't revealed to me. It wasn't like I was sitting in my office and out of nowhere these hands came out of heaven and ripped open the sky and angels came and ravens fed me grapes and stuff. I didn't have choirs in the corner. Oh, Chad, here is a message. No, that didn't happen. Somebody showed this to me. And as soon as I saw it, as soon as I read it, hopefully you had the same reaction I did when I saw it was, wow, God is good. See, it made me realize that if I don't slow down, then I'll miss a lot of what God has for me. And it's easy to get caught up in stress. And when you get caught up in stress, you get frustrated, you get confused, and you end up missing a blessing because our focus is not on God. We end up relying on ourselves. Speaking of stress, possibly one of the most stressful days in human history just happened a week or so ago, December 21st, 2012. The day that the world was supposed to end. What an awesome day. People bought into it in droves. They went out and they bought generators and water filtration systems and water and food and weapons for the next zombie apocalypse that's going to come. Which is really stupid because, I'm sitting here going, if the world's going to end, why are you buying stuff? If the world's supposed to go, then how is water going to help you? But, hey, it's okay. I stayed off the roads, It's okay. But, people, in all truth, they were preparing something. They were preparing for something that ultimately did not happen. And isn't that the whole history of humanity, though? We've been preparing for things that don't end up panning out the way that we thought they should. Just like the birth of Christ. The coming of the Messiah that was prophesied and talked about for hundreds and thousands of years. When he finally came, he didn't come the way everybody thought. Everybody thought this warrior king would come out of the sky on this huge white horse, dragging an army of angels with flaming swords ready to take out those who were persecuting them. But instead, Jesus came as a baby born to a poor family. And if you were expecting something else, that's not much of a Messiah. You're relying on your own understanding. And guess what? The majority of the people back then missed it completely. And is it bad that we miss things completely? Yeah, it is. But as long as we learn from that and we turn to God. Look at it this way. Some of the greatest men and women of the Bible, they screwed up as much as we do. Look at Peter. Peter messed up a lot. I feel sorry for the guy. He couldn't walk on water because he took his eyes off of God. Every time Jesus would predict his death and say, hey, when we get to Jerusalem at this time, they're going to take me, they're going to crucify me. It bothered Peter because Peter loved Jesus so much. And finally it got Peter so bad, he got him so irked, Peter finally looked at Jesus and said, Jesus, shut up. Stop saying that. We are not going to let you get taken, and we are going to definitely make sure that you do not get killed. You see, Peter did not have the vision that God had. He wasn't looking at what God had for his people. And in essence, Peter was relying on his own understanding. That's why Jesus said, get behind me, Satan. You're not looking at what my Father has. And did that stop Peter? Oh no, he screwed up even more. He denied Christ 3 times, just as Jesus said. How about after Jesus ascended? Yeah, Paul called him on a bunch of things. Called him a hypocrite. Yet we read Peter's words. Why? Because he was a great man. And he understood forgiveness. And he eventually got focus. Paul screwed up. David, a man after God's own heart, messed up royally. Let's look at Mary and Joseph. Mary, the mother of Jesus. She messed up. An angel comes before you and says, you are going to be the mother of the Messiah. And 2 angels come before Joseph in dreams, and pretty much Mary and Joseph, they knew who Jesus was. They knew that Jesus was man, God in man. They knew that. They understood that. So let's flash forward 12 years. Every year there's this thing called the Festival of the Passover. Every year the Jews would descend upon Jerusalem and they would have this festival, the Passover. Well, when it was over with, they left Jerusalem to go back home. And when they did that, everybody left with the family except Jesus wasn't there. Mary thought Joseph knew where Jesus was. Joseph thought Mary knew where Jesus was. They thought they were with cousins or something like that. Maybe he got into someone else's car. We don't know. But 3 days later, no Jesus, and they're home. You thought Macaulay Culkin was the first one to be home alone? Jesus did it first. So they panicked. They freaked out. Mary and Joseph, they went looking for him. They finally get to Jerusalem. And they're looking all over the place. And finally they walk into a temple. And there's Jesus just sitting there talking with the teachers and the rabbis. And everybody is marveled at the things that are coming out of his mouth, the questions and the answers that are being thrown. But that didn't impress Mary and Joseph. They were mad. They were mom and dad. They went to him and said, "Jesus, what have you done? Why did you do this to us, your parents? We've been looking all over for you." And Jesus just looked at him and said, "Well, why were you looking for me? Didn't you know I'd be in my Father's house?" Basically, he was saying, you know who I am. Come on. But if you think about it, Mary and Joseph not only lost sight of their son Jesus, they literally and physically lost God. I think the best thing that we can remember going into next year is that we need to keep our focus. We need to keep our focus on God and God alone. You know, if we don't, we'll lose sight. If we lose sight, we'll lose focus. If we lose focus, we could lose faith. If we lose faith, we'll just lose. And God did not create us to lose. God does not want us to lose. So next year, when you're coming up with your New Year's resolutions, the first thing you need to say to yourself every morning is, I'm going to set my sights on God and not lose focus. And then you need to say, I don't have it figured out because I don't want pride to set in. And then finally, you need to tell yourself that God wants me to succeed. So do me a favor. I know we usually read the verse at the beginning of the service, but everybody turn to Matthew chapter 6. It's on page 685 if you're using the Bibles in the chair racks. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 through 34. And as you're going there, I want you to listen to this. I want you to consider this as part of your New Year's resolution. When you form it, I want you to consider the words of Jesus. Because everybody's going to sit out there, everybody's going to sit and go, all right, what do I want to do in 2013? I'm going to lose weight. No, you're not. Don't kid yourself. Man, I got to be honest with you. I must have lost over 100 and some odd pounds over the last, like 7, 8 years. And it always comes back. So I've come to the solution that, you know what? You can flex fat. So we'll just leave it at that. But there's so many, you know what? Everybody makes New Year's resolutions and they decide, they try to keep them. But guess what? 7 days in, they break it. Why? Because they've lost focus. They've lost sight. So let's see what Jesus says. Chapter 6, verse 25 through 34. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the lilies of the field grow. They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you that even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Now, how cool is it that the creator of the universe would say to us, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's got enough problems. Don't worry. How can worrying add a single hour to your life? I think the most important thing he said there was seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and these things will be given to you as well. There's the answer right there. God is going to take care of you. But you're going to have to set your focus on him. You're going to have to set your sight on him in order for that to happen. You want success in 2013? Well, seek God. Don't worry. Just focus. That should be your vision for 2013.